Can you talk about the leadership with your team here? You guys are doing a really good job kind of coming through. Can you elaborate a little more on that?
Yeah, I think certain guys obviously are dependent on to lead the way, and everybody else does a great job following that footprint. So that's something we take pride in as leaders to come to play and kind of drag everybody into the fight. So that's been good to see.
Welcome back to the 2 Months podcast presented by Bel Air Cleaners and Dry Cleaners in Calgary. I'm your host, Joshua Marshall. We have our co-host and an amazing guest. He's always back with us. He's the hockey analyst with Rogers Sportsnet, and he is a 2-time Stanley Cup champion, a longtime executive in the National Hockey League. Mike Futa. Futes, how's it going?
Wow, co-host. I got a boost.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I just started saying co-host a bit
Threw
more.
one in there. Hey, holy smokes.
Yeah.
Better get change the resume.
Yeah. Change the paychecks too, right? So no, how are things going? Anything new and exciting in your world?
Just amazed at all these just watching the games and staying current, and it's just amazing when you look at some of the teams that you have this feeling that they're still Stanley Cup contenders, yet when you look at the standings, they're like 1 point into the playoff picture. So there's a few teams, I think, that the expectations were so high, and it's quite, I mean, like I'm in Toronto, so, and I've been going to a lot of their games live, and I can feel the tension surrounding the team from the outside, and an internal confidence that they seem to have. I mean, I think Mitch Marner went a little overboard with how excellent they're playing recently. But it just shows what a confident group they are. And but it's amazing how many games they've lost. Like, they haven't had, they're one team though that's even throughout their long losing streaks always seems to get points here and there. Even like Los Angeles, when they went on that long, they were still getting 6 or 7 overtime shootout points. So it just seems strange, but you look at that standing and you can't have those long losing streaks, and then Edmonton, they did, and look, then they run off 11 in a row, and all is great and all is sweet at home. But I'll tell you, it's just amazing to look at the standings and the teams that could be on the outside looking in if they don't get their act together.
Yeah, definitely a lot to cover. Before we get into all that, we have a new sponsor with us. So it's Bel Air Dry Cleaners in Calgary. So they even do your laundry. So and they've partnered up with Day One Dads here, and they've also partnered up with the captain of the Calgary Flames, Michael Backlund. So they have a promo code Backlund. So you guys use that promo code, 5% of every dollar earned in that donation will be donated back to men's mental health. So it's a new program. These guys just kind of partnered up with Backlund within the last maybe 5-6 days. And they're here joining us for the next 30 days and hopefully longer, but in partnership with Day One Dads Dry Cleaners. So Bel Air Dry Cleaners. So yeah, check them out. They're on Instagram. We'll tag them in our show notes and everything like that, so you guys can take a look. And then use that promo code Backlund. I think Michael Backlund the other day, from what I understand, just used it. So they came over to his house. They picked up his dry cleaning or his laundry. They brought it in, washed it all, and then folded it and brought it all back to him. So that's the kind of service you're getting. Yeah, pretty cool.
Backlund taking a little bit of a hiatus.
Yeah, exactly.
What, are they just on tour announcing the team's lineup as a family now? Just haven't to do laundry anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So that was pretty nice by Tilly there. So and obviously Backlund's a good friend of our podcast. So check those guys out. But let's get to our Flames report and a preview of this game tonight. The Leafs versus the Flames, and also we'll plug our another sponsor, Marlou Barbershop. I just got my hair done there, Futes, if you can see.
Holy fade, boy.
Yeah, got the beard all trimmed up, so I'm looking pretty fresh.
Well, you're a media guy now full time, so you
got to look good all the time, right?
Got to be trimming up all the time, absolutely.
Yeah. So boys there at Marlou in Calgary there, Nick and his team do an amazing job. But I would agree. I was listening to Toronto radio yesterday. It's it's not, the Mitch Marner's not young. You're definitely right on that. Like that's kind of I think the thing is, and the thing that I get too, and I I'll piggyback off some of the comments and some of the experts in Toronto that were saying is that Mitch Marner looks awkward in media. Like he doesn't look like he's comfortable even speaking to the media, and it's always us against the world. With him. So usually what you heard from him after the loss in Edmonton, we usually hear that when they get eliminated in the playoffs. So we usually get that in like May or April or something like that. We don't get it in January, but we got it in January. So I think as fans or as media or whatnot, you would kind of want them to stand up and be like, you're pissed off. Yeah, we're not happy with what's going on here. And then obviously Sheldon Keefe, the team didn't practice yesterday in Calgary, which Keith did a media veil, and obviously the focal point was TJ Brody, and and obviously Keith kind of went out and said, I don't know who I'm going to trust right now. And so it's an interesting thing here. Everyone knows I'm a Leaf fan, and as I get into the media side of things, I'm trying to maybe pull that back a little bit more. So but I got a lot of, we'll get into another debate on this with Austin Matthews. It is amazing how this media market here in Edmonton and the fans, like they despise Austin Matthews. Like he's the worst player in the world. We'll get into that in a bit. We'll tease that there, but we'll go back. But what do you expect tonight? Do you expect the Leafs to kind of bounce back and get going here? Because the Flames are rolling pretty good too. They got a 4-game win streak, but where are you at with this game tonight?
I think it's a critical game. I think the Flames have put themselves in a situation, just from the Calgary standpoint, that they traded Zadorov. We went over at length before we came on here, the amount of UFAs that are there. And the analogy, I guess, I just saw what the Raptors did yesterday. Where they're on the cusp. They look good some nights, and then instead of having Pascal Siakam walk, whether they got a great load for him, 3 firsts, they brought in some options. They've given themselves some opportunities to, make some more deals before the deadline. So they're not left with anything, nothing. And then you turn the clock back for Calgary when Tree was still there, and, you're kind of hovering on the edge. You're not giving yourself enough confidence that you should just be adding because you've been so vastly inconsistent throughout the year. Whatever your excuses were, whether you were blaming Daryl or whether you just weren't accountable. And now you have a team that's playing better hockey. But if you don't make some moves with some of these UFAs and you go back into one of your tailspins, which this team has shown they're very capable of doing, I know you've got to think positive thoughts, then you could be left holding the bag on a lot of guys that could walk for nothing. And I think that's very, very dangerous, especially the caliber of like the Lindholms and the Tanevs of the world that are available. I know Hannafin's available, but they've said they're quietly kind of negotiating to keep him around. So there's just some huge moves to be pondered. And again, you look at Toronto, who has struggled mightily to hold leads lately. And this isn't like last year. This team every year finds a different way to get the outside noise going. Yeah. Even when they're doing wonderful, magical things on the ice. And I don't argue, like that pass that Mitch made to start the game the other night there's maybe a handful of guys in the world that can make that pass, but then they find ways to collapse and give up. Guys are really struggling, and this doesn't have, there's not that depth on the back end where, like Jake Muzzin could settle things down when he was healthy and playing. And I'm very, when you're talking about Benoit as arguably your second or third best defenseman, and he's just supposed to be a feel-good story, get him in the lineup, last pairing guy, it's a battle and it's a struggle. And I think they've really got to find a way. Sheldon seems to, last year in the first game of the season, I think he got on the core 4 a little bit, and then he had to roll it back and kind of apologize and talk about how great they were. And over the last couple of weeks, he's been pretty consistently barking at how disappointed he is with the way these guys are. And he's not saying they're not magical players or they're not worth the money they're getting, but they've got to find a way to play a certain style because they don't have that depth on the back end, that everybody's got to be accountable. And when they play with like a pack mentality defense, they throw games up. Like, I don't know who it was. It might've been Colorado not Colorado. They had such a thorough victory the week before.
LA, they won 3-0.
Yeah, that was it in LA. And that was as thorough a game as you can play. And LA is another team to me that's just built for the playoffs. But the Leafs just did all the little things right. And then their skill took over. So this is a huge game for them, because we keep talking here about who we're going to get in the first round. And I know internally, I still very much think this is a playoff team, but there's really no easy fix here. Like, it's not like Brad has not been, Kyle did not leave him with a lot of assets to make this team better. And you can see, I mean, obviously Nyes was just being talked about as, when they're going to build his next statue above him, and early, and rightfully so, because he's a real good hockey player, but he's clearly tailed off. And it looks like some of the pressures and rigors of playing your first season have caught up to his game. And then you see some of the new signings that are struggling. That's not, they're not working hard, but Max is kind of looking to find his way some nights. Bertuzzi looks engaged some nights. He looks all over the map the next night. And again, you got a team that's supposed to be terminally, much tougher. I mean, I know Reeves is out, but the other night Matthews gets cross-checked. I was talking to Wendell Clark at the game about it, and we were just shaking our head that, that's an issue that was supposed to be addressed.
Yeah.
That you don't take liberties on your star players. And that was clearly, a couple games early in the season, they showed that ability to stick up for each other. And then it's like, hey, we can do that. So let's stop doing it. And those things, in order to be champions, those things have to come by natural, just natural, not by reminder from the media how bad it looked or something. It just should be an internal button that goes off. And you turn it up a notch when those kind of things are happening. And these are the lessons that the Leafs, I think you summed it up best. We usually hear these kind of comments after an early exit in the playoffs, and to hear them this early, it's a little different. It's another different path of conflict, and they're good enough to ring off 8 or 9, 10 wins in a row. But I mean, I'm sure when they looked in the mirror, they were at the beginning of the year, they didn't think Samsonov would be coming up from the minors to back up, and the fans would be chanting Sammy because he makes a save in a regular season game, just to give him a little bit of props. And then, you've got Martin Jones, who, thank God Tree pulled that one out of his hat, or who knows would be a net for the Leafs right now. You've got question marks with Hall's defense and with Wall's injury. And then you've got guys like Gio and Gio's still got something in the tank, but you can't play Gio 25, 24 minutes a night and expect to get the same polished product you need. And it just seems to be those defense pairings are just out of whack right now, and it's not an easy fix.
No, it's definitely not. And yeah, they got their work ahead of them here. The one thing I would say to that I didn't mind with Marner's, just because recently, it's not like I've been in the press box for a long time, but just talking to players, and then the players that I just know personally, they actually, it drives them nuts that people just go and find the negatives. And I'm not trying to throw Pierre LeBrun under the bus here, but I did tweet at something he tweeted at, because it is what it is. That's what sells his article, is oh, it's doom and gloom and everything's over. It's they're the worst team ever. So, and I get it. He's a Habs kind of guy. So maybe he, and that's another narrative that I have too. It's okay, you're a fan, or you're a fan. I don't believe in being a media guy and you're just there to watch the game and report on this. If you're covering a team on a full-time basis, Feuds, in my opinion, you're a fan of the team. I've seen it firsthand, so no one could argue with me that. Maybe everyone's a little bit different, but 90% of the guys covering the team are fans. So when they're speaking or their articles, or they're asking questions as a fan, not only as a media guy too. So it's, I don't know,
the thing with Mitchie though looks like, I think he takes a little bit more on himself too, because he is a Toronto-based guy.
He is,
He takes a lot of pride in it, and he looks like when he comes out, he's just taking a deep breath, like you said, and he's about to explode, right? And he's a very confident guy, cocky, but it's worked for him because he's that good. But it can rub people the wrong way, and again.
That's what happened yesterday.
But respectfully, they put themselves
in that position
with their lack of playoff success, and every year having to address it that way. And now, a breath of fresh air. You got a new general manager comes in, but he's kind of really handcuffed on what he can do with the lack of assets and cap space. So you're trying to redefine the same group and put different pieces around it on the outside. And I've always respected Brad for being able to do that and finding ways in spite of cap problems. Even what he did with Calgary to get some of those players in after Goudreau and Tkachuk moved on. So it's a really tough battle in a Canadian market. But that being said, that's why they get the big bucks in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
If they ever find a way to cross that border and get to the victory side, they'll be like there'll be streets named after these guys, and they'll be set for life. So
Yep.
it's just a grind getting through it, and you can tell it weighs a little bit more on Mitch because it always seems, there's always a bit of a forgiveness with Matthews, and now they're right on Tavares about his skating and how he's fallen off the map, and Willie hasn't scored since he got big tickets, so they're all over him. And I guess the big guy that's taking the heat right now is Sheldon, and it is what it is. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens because again, this is just rumor and speculation, and I think Sheldon, obviously these guys have a lot of respect for him because they were talked about whether they wanted him back and how much they like him as their coach, but you got to perform. And I don't like them if they decide to do something with the coach. I don't like the sliding the assistant over. I don't think it's very seldom has any positive effect other than I think they might have done it with Craig Berube, but that's a unique situation with a unique player. I don't like that move at all. And to just make a move, you got to have somebody that Brad, if he ever goes down that path, that he's really comfortable with who he's bringing in.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if it's a Joel Kenville or somebody like that,
that was the name I was going to go with, but obviously that's a little bit deeper because you got to go with the NHL and see if.
Well, I mean, yeah, you do, but I think at some point, and maybe it's deeper than that. But I mean, you want to go deeper. I would be, if I was Brad, I'd be at Corey Perry's house, picking him up in London and getting him added to this mix as well, because. Yeah. Obviously, not knowing what happened, it couldn't have been that egregious. Not taking any away. It was obviously an issue, but to be reinstated this quickly, it can't be as horrific as it was initially touted. And this
everything we heard too is if this happened in 31 other organizations,
they'll be playing. But I just don't want to take it because obviously the fact that the death story went to apologize, it was wrong. So you don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to measure it, especially when you don't know what the heck happened. Correct. But that being said, Corey Perry, when he's on teams, he doesn't allow teams to sleepwalk the way some of these teams have. And I mean, if I was even Edmonton, he might have a little bit trouble keeping up with some of the Oilers, but he's the perfect fit for one of those teams. And I always thought, I thought if they're the kind of minimum guys that are ready to do it, if you ever hired Kenville, and I'd get Taze and Perry in there in a heartbeat to kind of just put a little bit of your bottom six, just guys who've been there, done that. More shields for the top guys just to be able to play, and then find a way to get another defenseman and moving some salary out or some signaling of it, because there's something missing still in that ability to push and in that stuff that you would hope, that the bad habits that come with not defending each other and sloppy blowing leads and stuff that hasn't been a big part of the Leafs in the past. It's more, to me, the makeup of their current crew, with whether it's injuries, etc. That it's you got to play hard to keep the puck other than that. But it'll be interesting. And as I said, these ones aren't easy fixes, because just you said you pull up the standings and look how many teams want the same thing or need the same thing. Yeah. And how many teams have salary cap space to make it happen. So it'll be interesting to see if a team that maybe like a Arizona that's hung around, is a team that adds somebody at the deadline, that not as a rental player, but somebody that's going to be a part of their future, because so many teams, like you look what Anaheim's got up on the board for trade bait, but how do you get those players in? Like, I'm sure Toff would love to see our boy there from Gibson come rolling out Anaheim in to save the Devil's crease, but where do you find the cap space to make that happen?
Yeah, they're fighting it for right now, the Devils, our boy Toff and them too. So they got a big they got Friday, Saturday game here. So a big one coming up for the New Jersey Devils. We talked about in the last podcast too. But just to finish up on the Leafs theme, I don't know. I look at it as Brad Treliving has 18 months. Not saying like when I say 18 months, like his contract's longer, but the situation with all the contracts in terms of what his player wise, he has 18 months to improve his roster to the way it should be for a Stanley Cup contender. I don't think he should be adding anything at this deadline, because he doesn't have much, because Kyle Dubas pretty much gave away everything. So you got to keep what you have, and just as you would say as a Leaf fan, and that it's tougher because he has higher, there's a new CEO there with Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, so they got a new boss at the helm, and they need to probably go farther in the playoffs here to and with the Raptors not doing as great, you're not getting a lot of that playoff money from them too. But I don't know. I look at it as the next 18 months are very critical for him to upgrade the back end. I do believe in Joseph Woll, and not just saying that because he's a Lane Waugh client, and Elaine Waugh is an agent that helps us out with RSG hockey. But I just think in terms.
Does Elaine do his own laundry?
Well, if Belair cleaner starts getting out to Vegas, because Elaine,
I was going to say,
Lane left St. Louis to Vegas a couple of years ago. So yeah, they might have to branch over there. But yes, and use that promo code Backlund to get some money off again. We'll plug that again. But yeah, I think Tree has 18 months to figure this all out, and then because you already signed Matthews, you already signed Nylander. Now, July 1st, where's things at with Marner? It was always a difficult negotiation last time with him. It's not like it went to where Willie's went, but, is that the PC trade? And then that's 1 year left on John Tavares' deal is next year. And then somewhat you get some cap relief because the cap will go up, and then you're not paying John Tavares $11 million. So John Tavares is probably more on the fact of, I don't know, you could say probably, maybe 2.5 million to 3 million. Patrice Bergeron did that, then why can't he do that? And that's the argument that you're going to have in Tampa Bay is, does Julian Breezewald go to Steven Stamkos and say, Bergeron did it, he signed for 3 million incentive bonuses, you're going to do that too, or you got to walk. I don't know.
Well, we talk about teams all the time, and I mean, the teams that have won recently, I know us with the Kings, and it's a little bit of maybe patting yourself in the back, but Mark Yannetti and our group there, we just stock the shelves with picks, like guys that are prospects.
Yep.
And it allows, and obviously it's a new general manager, Rob Blake, and I talked about it, but you look at Brock Faber in Minnesota, right? Yep. He's a stud. I mean, they got Fiala for him, but when you have players like that, I mean, they didn't have room for Sean Durzi on their back end, right? Like how good would Sean Durzi, who the Leafs threw into a trade with us as part of a package?
Trevor Moore.
Look in Toronto, Trevor Moore. Yeah. And I realized at the time, I know nobody expected Muzz to be injured and stuff, and Cliffy his career was shortened too. But when you look at and I think I said it, I would not pick up the phone if I was Kyle Dubas dealing with Rob Blake again in my lifetime, based on what ended up coming back to Toronto, even Grunstrom, plus the picks. Like, I mean, this brand they didn't have Sean Walker, who's playing great in Philadelphia, had to move on from him because there was no space for him. It's amazing to think of the players that have given the bullets that were put into the shelves in LA. And then you look at the players that Vegas was allowed to move on from. Great players like Suzuki, like players like these are not just, they gave up great players that they drafted on their own to bring in more seasoned guy. And that's how you get a banner. So if you don't have stuff in your shelves, and that's whether you do it, like we got IFL through just crazy hard UFA free agent, college free agent. Like you can find ways to add assets to your shelf, but you got to have them, and it allows you to make trades of significance. And you see the Kings, whether you like the trade or not. I know we talked about it, but you have the bullets to pull off a Dubois trade, and you still have an absolutely loaded stable, ready to move up into your big team. And now you look at the Leafs. I don't know. It looks like Easton Cowan's a great pick. He seems to be coming around.
Yeah.
The other
Fraser Mitten.
He didn't have a good World Juniors at all, which is hard when a kid plays like that to come around and put a bow on him for a trade when he just had a World Juniors like that. Not that I'd say they're trying to trade him or anything, but that's certainly a name that would come up. And then when Nick Robertson's coming back, and now he can't even get into your own lineup again. So, I mean, the one kid, the Finnish defenseman they were raving about, somebody blew him up in an exexhibition game, and I don't know if he's woke up yet. I can't remember that they showed the replay in training camp there. But anyways, everybody's looking at Brad Treliving and saying, what are you going to do next? Well, it's very hard when you come into a library and there's no books in it, and somebody tells you, it takes a while.
Yeah. That's why I say 18 months. Dubas left knowing that he traded everything knowing he probably wasn't coming back, so, and
well, if you look at his, I mean, that's one thing to say. If you're sitting there with, picks coming out, you almost have to set, like they've made conscious effort to re-sign these players that they still want to win with. So that's their window is still open. But he's got a first. I don't think he has a second for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
How do you evaluate yourself when you don't have any picks to make?
Yes.
Picks. So it's a unique situation to be in, because when you're not prepared to give up the players that are going to stack some picks for your scouts to go to town, it's a tough one. It's like, as I say, use that analogy. It's like doing the 100-yard dash in a 90-yard gym. It's a bit of headache after a while.
Yeah. So we teased it at the start there. Your thoughts on kind of what you're in Toronto, but so maybe the Austin Matthews hype gets a little bit too much play there. I don't know, but I know here in Edmonton, he is absolutely despised as a player. There's not much respect for him. It's pretty hard for Edmonton media and Edmonton fans to say that he's even a good goal scorer. All day yesterday on Sports Talk Radio here is they say Matthews is the flamingo of the Leafs. He doesn't like to block shots, but yet he leads the team in block shots for forwards, has for several years. But obviously I'm going to sound biased because I'm a guy that watches this guy every night. I'm not saying he's a perfect player, because as Craig Button says, and this very well from your longtime executive days in the NHL and still watching the game, you're never going to find a perfect player. But I do think the guy is an elite talent. I do think he's in the conversation of the Connor McDavids and the Leon Draisaitl's and the Nathan McKinnons. You're kind of your view from where you are in Toronto area that the hate that kind of Matthews drives here in Edmonton, where it just fans just despise him and media despises him too.
Well, I'll throw it right back.
Yeah.
That's just respect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just respect, how much respect they have for him. It's like whatever use one of our W. I know we kind of wrestling fans use a WD. They say when you come out and you get the most boos.
Yeah, you're a heel, right?
That's self-respect you have. That's self-respect you have. Like, I mean, how can you not look at what this guy does?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a big analytics guy, but he's got more goals than anybody in the world over the last, and he's on pace for 60 or 70 this year.
Yeah.
So to say that he stinks, then somebody would ever pass the bong to the next guy if they think he can't play. Like, that's just ridiculous. And I mean, I think I'll go back. I saw Connor get, and maybe it's the cheesy mustache. I'll go with that if they want to get on him about that.
Well, it's just weird because Matthews has 58 block shots and McDavid has 18.
Okay, but Connor McDavid got interviewed the other day, and the question he got asked, he said, "Can you understand why when you go into Montreal, they just hate him? They boo him mercilessly." And of course you do, because he's the best player in the world.
Yeah,
and you don't have him, and your fan base, you're all about your own team, and he's not on your team. Now, Matthews, I mean, how can you not deny that he's just a phenomenal goal scoring machine? And again, he's not the perfect. But you can't tell me that he hasn't worked hard. You'll find him coming back hard and stripping pucks and battling down low in situations. Is it consistent all the time? No. But you can't tell me for 1 second that this is not, like, if you were rating the top 5 players in the world right now, he's one of them. And unfortunately, they talk about McKinnon and Crosby kind of being the two-way machines right now, if you're starting there. But I mean, Austin Matthews is a phenomenal generational talent.
Yeah.
And anybody would want him. But it's, again, and I love Connor McDavid, so this is not any, but God forbid anybody get put in the same sentence as Connor if you're an Edmonton fan.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have the heel turn, and we're gonna boo you right off the ice because you're not in our superstars league.
Yeah. That's what it is. It's God forbid. It's Edmonton media, it's always a good battle. Even having some text messages yesterday.
Well, didn't they boo Gretzky when he came back?
They did. Yeah, they did.
Okay.
So, yeah. But like, that's the thing is, like, you saw that on Saturday where McDavid was getting booed in Montreal, and it's just like, that wasn't news to me because and that's where I come out on, like, educated or non-educated fans. Like, I think we can say Edmonton fans are very passionate, but this will probably be a shot to them. Not very well educated in the terms of hockey, because it's like most Edmonton fans I know, all they'll do is just watch an Oilers game. Like, they won't sit there and watch, say, San Jose versus Arizona, or they won't watch, the Penguins versus even the Capitals. Like, they're so invested in their team, and I get it because you're passionate about your team. But if you watch, even, like, you can just tie it back. So Montreal has a 7-game homestand, and Connor Bedard got booed there. Like, it's Connor Bedard. Sidney Crosby, who loves Montreal, growing up saying he's a Habs fan, also gets booed there. Alex Ovechkin booed there. So it's like, that's the history that the Canadiens organization does and the fans do. But like, when you go to Montreal as a visiting player, I've never heard one person say how bad it is to play there. They love playing there. They say it's the best theater. You know, you got the best anthem in Chicago, and you got probably the best fans in theater in Montreal. So, you know,
they're passionate, that's for sure. Even when they're struggling, it's one of those rinks you just feel the energy coming up. And even like when they do a tribute or something, like I think we were there one night when one of the legends had passed, and they do that where they have the empty chair, and it's might have been Rocket Richard, but it is so well done and so professional that it's incredible. It was almost the only energy I would say I could match it, and it's probably because of my fan side as well. Was I was at both of the Salming games, and his last little tour here, and the emotions in the building that night were like nothing I've ever seen. Like, as far as the tears and the I think just watching Daryl Sittler on the blue line with him or at center ice still brings a tear to my eye. But that's passionate fan base. I mean, crap, look at I was laughing. I sent Alec Martinez a text when the Detroit Lions won that playoff game, and they're showing people like weeping in the stands and stuff. And he's like, Futes, I feel like I just won my 4th Stanley Cup. Like, that's how his entire existence has been a Lions fan, and just watching them choke and gag and choke and gag. So the only difference is the Lions don't have, like the Leafs, everybody goes back and talks about, when I get my Woodbridge hockey Toronto Maple Leaf fan between 20 and 30 that are bragging about the 67 Cup. You know, I mean, hey, we got more cups than you got this. And I'm like, hey, you weren't even a cigarette in your dad's. You weren't even a date yet with your dad and your mom when they last won that cup. So, but I do think the fan base is worthy of that kind of run and championship. And that's the same thing. I'd love to see a passionate fan base like Vancouver find a way to keep this thing going and make it interesting as well. Because I think every Canadian market deserves a chance to have that feeling. And Leafs Montreal used to just check it back and forth in the old day. And I mean, imagine Winnipeg winning a Stanley Cup. Like, my God, how can you not love that thought?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We'll finish up on this, the PWHL feuds, from what you've seen so far and how it's gone to the first month here. You know, so talk some women's hockey here. Pretty exciting to see what they're doing, and there's been some pretty good games too, haven't there?
Yeah, I just amazed at the contact. There's some big hits being thrown out there. The skill set, the hands, like some of the individual goals are just like somebody. I was the other night. Somebody came in and went up the quick upstairs bar down, and you had to do a quick. Was that Patrick Kane or was that Trevor Zegras? And it's amazing. It's amazing the skill set. Now, did Toronto win last night?
They lost again. Yeah.
Okay, now this is my problem.
Yeah.
In true Toronto form, if they start, because I know they lost the home opener.
Yeah, they lost 2-1 last night, I believe.
Yeah, and they're such a good team. But I mean, I can still hear now. I'm starting to hear the buzz of the Toronto market getting on our women's team already. So
exactly.
Come on, come on,
like,
Toronto Nation. Let's back off. I mean, holy smokes! Yeah. They've been a franchise for 2 weeks.
Exactly. Let them breathe a bit. So
I could watch Sarah Nurse play hockey. I mean, she's just the hockey sense and that whole the athleticism and stuff of the family's pretty unique. But that's it's just fun to watch, and it's great to see. It's great to see the amount of fan support that's been there, and rightfully so. The games have been very, very exciting.
Yeah. We'll finish up on the Oilers here. Just a real quick rip on them. 11-game heater right now. Big game against Seattle. Seattle just flew from out east to 3 games, 4 nights. They fly in Edmonton, finishing off a 6-game road trip from what it looks like. So it doesn't look like a good game for Seattle to walk into, but anything could happen. That's why it's the NHL. But all the Oilers have done, that Stauffer puts it out since this, it's always the best. So, they're 19-3. So they're not the best team from the start to the year. So we don't really care about those guys, but we just care about the team that's best since like November 9th. But whatever the record is, what the record is, and the stats are what the stats are for sure. But all it was is a new coach coming in and a Hall of Fame assistant coach coming in on the back end. There was no other trades. There was no signings. There was
You
nothing
remember
else.
at the time, everybody was like, this is not about the coach. This is nothing on Woody.
Yeah.
This is, it's all, and now it's Knobloch should be, the Jack Adams should be renamed to Chris Knobloch Award. And I love Knobs, but it's like, and I mean, Woody did a wonderful job there as well, but it's amazing what happens when you start to play better defensively. I mean, their stars are clearly their stars. I mean, other than that, you should make sure Hyman goes to your barber shop, because the other day he was getting interviewed and I was like, he looked like Jimmy Olsen from the Daily Planet with that.
I think most
tell him to throw a little gel and get a little fade going. But I think Zach Hyman, there's not the perfect hockey player, but from a coach's standpoint, he might be as close to the most coachable hockey player. And to see what he's doing, that's the one. If I were the Leaf fans, I'd want to shoot somebody to see that one got away, because they keep trying to audition guys to play on the line with Marner and Matthews or anybody, because Zach Hyman just can play with anybody. And to think that somehow in the All-Star format, they have to pull somebody out of a place just because you have to have one guy. And Zach Hyman, with the year he's having, doesn't get to play in his hometown in an All-Star game. Now that sucks.
Yeah,
sucks completely. But so I will say, I will put my Zach Hyman. Thank you for allowing this team to get out of their doldrums while you continue to carry them on your back while everybody else got their act together, because clearly Connor and Draisaitl are who they are. And he's, now Evander Kane, that he's gone through injuries. They've got so many weapons there. I would like to see them find a way to add a defenseman. And it looks great. And I mean, it's like the same thing. You shine it up and you're like, okay, now that's the Skinner we want. Okay. You got Jack Campbell as your fourth. He's your backup in Bakersfield now, I think, which is not conducive to solid cap management. And you hope that Pickard, when it gets dialed up a notch, that they're not looking back at that goaltending and going, we didn't address it, or maybe you can address it, but you can't, as easy it is to look at the fact that they're 11 in a row. Everybody expected them to be able to be 11-0. They just expected to come out of the gate 11-0. Yeah. So they've also proven that they're capable of, when things aren't going well in net, losing a lot of games. So it's a tough, sticky situation, but I'll tell you, they're fun to watch. And when you got those guys up front, but right now, if somebody gets hurt, I don't care what team he's on. You don't go to Chicago and keep going down the roster to find out who the next All-Star is because Bedard can't come. You friggin' get Hyman on a bus and try to get him back to Toronto for the All-Star game because he deserves it.
Yeah, for sure. Great way to end, Futes. Have a good weekend. Thanks for everything. Thanks for all the things that you do, and all the best here as the weekend gets going and get some good games. It's Hockey Day in Canada for Rogers Sportsnet on Saturday. I know last time that was happening, you were with Lanny McDonald and Owen Sound, so it was pretty cool for you. So they're in Victoria this time around, but so I'll be watching that on the tube, watching our good friends Elliot and Kevin and Ron.
I'm glad your sponsors got you all greased and slicked back for your fan out game tonight. You're going to be falling out of that press box with your team at one end and your team at the other end.
Exactly. Yeah.
You have to do the old Seinfeld, half face paint, blue and white, half red and gold or red and Flames colors, and just let her go.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Feuds, have a good one. Thank you so much.
Bud.
Our NHL News and Notes segment is brought to you by Sheena Boychuk. Yes, you heard that last name right. That's Sheena Boychuk. As a licensed realtor, Sheena has you covered to buy and sell your home in this hot market. She also offers home consulting services to help you upgrade your living space. Check her website out at sheenaboychuk.com and tell her the Two Mods podcast sent you. Realty by Design, your design approach to real estate.
Coach Rupper here from Two Mutts. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. Now let's grab a knee. Have I got a deal for you? We have teamed up with Manscaped, and we can save you some big-time coin this upcoming NHL season. Guys, are your sticks and pucks getting hairy in the corners? And gals, is your goalie still using horsehair Coopers? Well, let's wake up! Use the code 2MUTS to save 20% plus free shipping on Manscaped products. Listen, we all love to score and we all want to win the cup. Why not do it on a fresh, clean, smooth sheet of ice? That way we all win. Manscaped is the only way to go. Again, the code is 2MUTS to save 20% plus free shipping on Manscaped products. Now let's bring it in. Manscaped on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Mutts fans, it's now time to hand out our tickets to our Edmonton Oilers and Calgary Flames contest for the Battle of Alberta on the weekend here, Saturday night, hockey night in Canada. So we'd like to thank everyone for taking part and joining along here. And yeah, it's pretty sweet. We had some new sponsors join us too, so thanks for them for jumping in and helping out making this cause possible. So without further ado, thanks to our friends at Manscaped for helping us out, and they're the ones that picked these two winners. So our first winner is Amy Dollywall. So Amy, congratulations. You are going to the game on Saturday night. And our second winner is Pedro Garmero. So congratulations to Amy and Pedro. You are two winners. So check your DMs, and our administration team will find a way to reach out to you. And yeah, so it's pretty sweet. Handed some things over from our podcast over to a new company. So they're doing all our promotional stuff and all our messages back and forth. So it's pretty sweet in terms of that. And yeah, thanks for everyone for joining in. Congratulations to our two winners. We'll look forward to maybe probably doing another contest for the return of the Battle of Alberta in February in Edmonton. So stay tuned to that. Congrats, and have a good weekend, everyone. Cheers, and take care, and be well, be happy, be humble.